It's official. We have yet another huge report from Elliot Friedman, this time surrounding Mitch Mner, that gave us some huge details surrounding the inside look and the conversations between the front office and Mitch Mner, and some details that have leaked within this article change everything for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And for the first time, we have some clarity not only on what the sides are feeling, but what's been going on behind the scenes, folks. A ton to go over today. You're going to want to stay tuned till the end because there are some interesting details that have leaked here. But before we get into it all, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. Thank you guys for your continued support, guys. Peace. Darius, a lot to go over today. A little bit of a crazy report here that we're going to dive into, because at the end of the day, we figure that Mitch Mner is going to be leaving, but this is the first time, and it's been confirmed, that it seems like the Leafs aren't even going to take a meeting with Mitch Mner. You can see this here on Elliot's latest 32 Thoughts podcast. Mitch Mner was offered, he offered a meeting to Toronto, but Friedman doesn't believe that they're going to even go through with the meeting. And bearing a sudden change in philosophy, Carolina is expected to push all the chips into the pot. I'm watching Vegas and a bunch of Western Conference teams. We'll dive into those in a minute here. But this is about as clear-cut as it's been from the most notable reporter in the NHL, Elliot Friedman in the industry. He's basically saying, bearing a sudden change of philosophy, the Leafs aren't even going to attend a meeting with Mitch Mner. They're done with the player. They're done with all the antics. And at this point, they are not going to be retaining Mitch Mner. So if you needed any more clarity here, for the first time, we have essentially, confirmation from Elliot Friedman.
Yeah, and I think so. For anyone that knows, the Leafs inside of their jerseys in the collar, it says honor, pride, courage. And I think that the Toronto Maple Leafs as an organization should have some pride and, not have this meeting with Mitch Marner. Just decline it at this point. I mean, that you can't win with this player. He's been, negotiating, and not just him, his camp, through the media for the last 10 years at this point. You know everything that comes with this player. Rid yourselves of this player and move on in a different direction. Start to build up the team in a different way. And again, I keep saying it on the channel. This is not about replacing Mitch Marner. Like, they're not looking for a Mitch Marner replacement this offseason. They're trying to build a different team, one that can actually win. So, I don't think that they're going to even take this meeting at this point. What is there for the Toronto Maple Leafs to say in this meeting, or even Mitch Marner at this point? Look at the way that everything ended. Look at the last couple of years, right? There's nothing that, that they both parties don't already know. And the Leafs can't offer him as much as other teams anyway. Like, I would be surprised if the Leafs even wanted to offer him 12 million at this point. And there was a point in time, which is the craziest thing. I'm pretty sure Brad Treliving actually did offer him north of $13 million on an 8-year deal, and his camp declined it. They were going to make him the highest paid Leaf of all time, and making more money, this was the report at least, than Austin Matthews. And I think that's what he always wanted, to make more money than Austin Matthews. We'll get into that later in the video as well. But he's probably going to get that, but it's going to be somewhere else. And there's a lot of other teams, and there's other reports that now Mitch Marner might not actually sign on July 1st. He's going to take his time, mull things over, as all teams are scrambling to get their teams together and make free agency signings, which is hilarious in my eyes. But that is what it looks like at this point. But if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think it's time to, you should have an internal deadline. And I feel like if I was Brad Treliving, it's already passed. And what are we looking towards in terms of how do we get the Matthew Nyes contract extension done? What are we looking like in terms of John Tavares' contract? Are we moving on from John Tavares? And if we are, what does the team look like? What are we doing? Is it via trade, or are we making signings in free agency? So that's kind of how I'm looking at it from the Leafs perspective. I think you need to close the door on this as an organization. This player does not help you win, and you need to stop dealing with all this stuff.
Yeah, and it seems like we're only days away, maybe a week or two away from officially hearing that the Leafs are out. I would expect any day now. Frank Saravalli, remember his report that we covered a little bit a few days ago, saying that the camp hasn't really engaged in any substantive conversations with the Leafs in the past year, not just the past week or 2 weeks or months since they've been eliminated, the past year. And then Chris Johnson came out with a report that was actually quite interesting. As he said, Mitch Marner is open to shorter term deals. Wouldn't surprise me if he does a 2, 3, or 4-year deal, which in theory would have been great for the Leafs, because he signed to a 2 or 3-year deal right in the middle of their window. Obviously, the Leafs don't want to do that, and I'm not sure Mitch Marner would want to sign with the Leafs anyway. But Carolina, they could easily pay him all that money for 2 or 3 years. Vegas, I mean, now if you're shortening down the contract, I'm sure there's a lot more teams that are open to overpaying Marner, to the point where the Leafs don't really have that luxury. They can't pay him for $14 million for 2 or 3 years. I mean, they could, but then the rest of their team, they have so many pending UFAs and RFAs here. And feel free to pause and read this entire, some of the info in here. But essentially, to kind of give you the jot notes of it and the spark notes, he is going to be meeting with teams starting July 1st, virtually, with Toronto, if it is that. Again, Elliot Freeman came out and said they're not even going to meet with him. He basically just put the Leafs on the exact same level as every other team, maybe even a little bit lower. And it seems now that after this plan was discussed in the 30 Thoughts podcast last week, this is the middle of the first paragraph, some people around the league pointed out as a potential issue, what if a team tells him they can't wait and needs a decision immediately, or they'll move on to plan B, which I think is the Toronto Maple Leafs. That'll probably be the team. And again, we don't know if he's going to sign a full, 4-year deal, 5-year deal, whatever it ends up being. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of teams pushing hard and bearing a shift in approach. The Leafs are not going to be going all in for Mitch Marner, but also bearing a shift in approach. Carolina is expected to go all in as well. So Elliot Freeman's not sure that the Leafs are going to even go through with this contract. So it's going to be interesting. A bunch of reports have already kind of been saying that. It's been completely quiet in the front of Mitch Marner, and it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see where he lands as well. Because again, I don't think it's going to be in Toronto, but it's going to be interesting. Is it a Western Conference team? Because it sounds like he wants to go to the West, but Carolina is going to pony up a lot of money, I think, at this year's free agency on July 1st. They're going to probably offer him maybe the most amount of money. That's what it sounds like, where they want to. But I don't know. It doesn't really sound like he wants to stay in the East. And I see a lot of people out there comparing this, and I want to clear this up too, at least with my thoughts personally, that a lot of people are comparing this situation and the fact that they haven't had contract negotiations for the past year to the John Tavares situation when he left New York. I don't think it's at all the same thing. John Tavares was a great player for the New York Islanders. He put that team on his back numerous times. That year, heading into that season that he was a free agent, he's basically, as I remember it, went to management and said, please build me a team, like build a team around me or get somebody at the trade deadline. They didn't do that even though he asked. Then he decided to leave to go home to the Toronto Maple Leafs to try and win a Stanley Cup at home. Mitch Marner was paid a lot of money up front to please deliver a Stanley Cup, never did that, never performed in the big moments, and now he's leaving for the highest dollar amount. It's not at all the same thing, not even close. So I've seen that out there, and I wanted to, again, just my thoughts. But I don't think this is at all the same thing. And I feel like, Islanders fans wanted to keep John Tavares. And I would say, I'm not going to say all Leaf fans, because I know there's a lot of Leaf fans that like Mitch Marner, but the majority of Leaf fans are ready to move on from Mitch Marner. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, where he lands, and kind of how this plays out. But again, it's not really about replacing Mitch Marner at this point. I'm interested to see how the Leafs build a team around Austin Matthews, William Nylander, the guys that are here. And if they keep John Tavares as well, it's going to be interesting. But again, it just sounds like, they're not even going to take the meeting at this point. Again, like I mentioned earlier in the video, Nick, like, what are the Maple Leafs going to say in that meeting if they take that meeting that like both parties don't already know, right, at this point? So I think it's done.
Yeah, I mean, if he gets offers of $14 million, it's over. He's not going to get a hometown discount. Maybe the Leafs say, hey, if you take 10 million, 11, sure. Otherwise, no. I don't think that's going to happen from either side. Vegas, Carolina pushing all the chips into the pot. And again, trades could be on the horizon. We covered that in the video earlier, so it's going to be interesting. Let us know down below what your thoughts are. There's also, I just want to throw this out there. Not 100% sure how, whether this is satire or not, but people are saying that Mitch Marner's camp was upset that he didn't get the C or the alpha dog treatment, and it got some rumblings there. Again, could be it's interesting. Honestly, it sounds like something that's believable. So it's people are treating it as if it's believable. As an article written. Not sure. Take it with a grain of salt is basically what I'm saying. But if that's the case too, about him being upset about the captain treatment, interesting conversation to have as well. I'm sure details will leak following him leaving the Leafs from the Leafs side about what the actual reason was behind how things got so hostile for someone who was supposed to be a Leaf for life. But that'll wrap it up. Let's know what your thoughts are.